Okay, so I decided to do one last quick video. We've been talking about infrastructure, how to put together your infrastructure, how to use RStudio Cloud in your classes, and I haven't told you anything about how to do data analysis, which is not the point of this online module, but I thought some of you might appreciate it if I just kind of went through some really basics using this example assignment that I created. So in these R notebooks, you have text, which is just text, it's notes. And this is written in Markdown. Again, look at that overview file that I created and it has links to references to all of these things. This is a code chunk, and I can create a code chunk by doing insert R. A really interesting thing about notebooks is I can actually run other kinds of languages here, but for the most part, you'll probably be just using R. And here what I'm doing is loading in the tidyverse library. So part of your infrastructure is your environment, where you're working, what software you're using, but another really important part are packages and libraries. So in modern programming, packages and libraries are just this kind of reservoir of code and functionality that you can pull up and rely on. And the tidyverse is really very common, very popular, and very useful within people who use R. So ggplot2 is a visualization package. It is used in 99% of projects that are visualizing data. dplyr is used for rearranging and manipulating data. It's very, very useful. Another really nice thing about the tidyverse is that it is used in this free book called R for Data Science, written by Hadley Wickham and one other person. Hadley Wickham is largely in charge of these packages. They're really grounded in a good philosophy of data. I highly recommend using them and learning them. So if we come back here, this is my code chunk. I would run it by hitting this. So all that does is it runs that code, and I've activated my, my library there. So in this file, it's asking us to do a series of things. We're not going to totally learn how to program in R, but we'll learn some basic stuff. So it says read in a CSV file. So if I create my R code chunk, I'm writing R, not English. I can create a variable. We're working with data about college majors. So this says I'm creating a new variable, and I'm setting that variable equal to read underscore CSV, and then I'm going to give it the file name, collegemajors.csv. And read CSV is from one of the tidyverse packages, and all it does is reads in a CSV. I'm just going to clear out work I had done earlier. So I run that, and I can see I now have in my environment a variable called majors. It's a data frame. Basically, that means a kind of a fancy table. I can see these are the kinds of columns in my table or the variables attached to my majors data frame, and I can see a tabular view of this if I want to. So if we come down here, it's saying, okay, let's do summary statistics. So a really important thing to know about R is that I can access variables inside my data frame using the $sign. So majors $total, and I need to be putting this into a code chunk. So majors $total. If I run that, it's going to give me a list of all of the totals from this column. So this is going down that column. Anything that I do to this is going to be done to each item in that list. So I can say majors $total plus 1. And if I run that, what it's going to give me is each of those numbers with 1 added to it. So if I want to know, say, the minimum value of the totals column, I can say min total, so that's a function, and when I run it, it's going to return the minimum value from that column. I can ask for the maximum value of that column, or I could ask for a summary of that column if you want your quartile information. This inline code chunks is a really nice ability of notebooks. So this would let me insert a dynamic number, like the minimum of this column, into a sentence. So say if you were teaching a class on ad or PR, and generating some kind of like industry research reports, that's a really useful ability that you can read more about here. When we start visualizing, again, we're very, very, very often going to be using the ggplot2 package, which is in tidyverse. And when I do this, I use this R Cookbook website quite a lot because the exact options here get a little bit hard to remember. So you come in here, you can copy and paste your code, and you'll have to read a little bit about how ggplot works. For now, I think I'm just going to pull in this code that I've already written. And if I run that, I will get my visualization right below it. One thing to remember is our Studio Cloud is a little bit slow. That was pretty quick, but if you start working with bigger data, it will start hanging a little bit. Another thing that I want to touch on, though, is summarizing data using dplyr. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. And I bring this up just because it is so useful for doing basic data analysis. So dplyr is in the tidyverse, and it's used for largely for summarizing data or grouping data. So here we've got major categories: agriculture and natural resources. I assume there's maybe social science, humanities, things like that. And I want to do this. So I'm going to bring this over and walk through this code really quick because it's very useful. So this you're going to see once you start working with dplyr, and that's called a pipe. And basically what we're doing here is we're summarizing this, and we're first grouping it by our major category column. So this is basically doing a pivot table in Excel, if you're familiar with that. So I'm going to group it by major category, and then I'm going to summarize it. And I'm going to say the median unemployment rate is equal to the median of that grouped column. And then I can also sort with dplyr. So if I do this, I now have my median unemployment rate summary, and it's sorted. So again, for doing reports and things like that, this is very, very useful, and dplyr is very worth learning. So you can go through the example that has answers if you want to go further. And then again, once you're done with this, you can save this file, but you can also come here to knit and knit to various output formats. So you can turn this into HTML if you want to show your students. You can turn it into a PDF if you want to send it to a colleague. And when you do that, what it's going to do is it's going to run through each of your code chunks again, starting from scratch, and then it's going to output your code and what the code produced. So here's my list, and I deleted the visualizations. So again, not a lesson in R, but a really, really, really quick introduction and some resources to get you going.